Good morning. Happy Thursday from the Busy Fit podcast. Today we have our 40th episode. That is absolutely crazy because when we started this, we had no idea what we were doing. And still, we probably have no idea what we're doing, but we're getting better at it every single week. So thank you for listening if you've been along for the ride. If you are new to our podcast, make sure that you subscribe and follow us for future episodes. Today is going to be a fun one. I will be solo. Excited to kind of talk through a recent clip I saw while I was watching College Game Day and really just kind of encapsulating why I like working with ex-college athletes. For those of you that know who Nick Saban is, he's probably the best college football coach of all time. He won 6 national championships, 9 SEC titles, 4 Heisman Trophy winners, 44 first-round NFL draft picks, and more importantly, beyond like those statistics, is his players loved him, and they consistently went on to be successful in their careers and life afterwards. And he just did something that no one really has been able to do, and that's actually being sustainably good at a sport. You know, it's really difficult to get to the top of any sport, but it's even more difficult to stay there and have continual progress and then have moments where like there was some adversity and then be able to actually overcome that. He was always able to do that. And more importantly, like being able to relate to players and have them feel like there's someone that he is, or that he is someone that is worth working really hard for to reach their own goals because they know that like he's got their back. And so I'm going to go ahead and play that speech for you. I'll be completely honest. I have no idea if it's even like legal or copyright wise for me to play it. So it might get cut out. If it does, I'll tag it in the episode show notes in case you want to go back and listen to it yourself. It's only maybe 1 minute and 10 seconds long. So let's take our shot at playing this for you real quick.
Hey guys, plugging this in after editing. Unfortunately, we were not able to get that clip to actually be able to show in the episode. So if you are listening to this, go ahead and just like pause it real quick and go into the show notes, and the video will be referenced in there.
All right. I don't know if you feel the same as I do, but I'm like pumped up listening to that because that's just motivating, you know, hearing like, you have to give that level of focus, and regardless, you're entitled to nothing. But that also encapsulates like why working with ex-college athletes is so much fun, and ultimately something that like I'm incredibly passionate about and our team's incredibly passionate about, because ex-college athletes, any way you cut it up, regardless of whether or not you feel like you're a hard worker, ex-college athletes know how to take it to a level beyond something that you can even process. And so this would be a great episode to send to, like, if you're married to someone that's not an ex-college athlete, or your friends just don't understand why you are the way that you are, this would be great to send to them to kind of put some context behind that. So that speech, if you competed at any level of sport, regardless of whether it was Pee-wee football or, you know, travel league, you know, summer teams for summer, you know, swimming, or if you went to NAIA or Division II or Division III or Division I or went on to compete in the pro level, you've heard this speech or a similar speech at some point during your career. And that's such a cool thing to think about. Like, one, we've all heard that similar, you know, vocabulary, but also like if you have words like that fed to you on a weekly basis for 15 to 17 years of your life, because you started competing when you were 5 years old, and that dad that, you know, heard a speech like this on College Game Day and carries it over to like giving it to 5-year-olds, or even through competing at the highest level. And you look at the coaches that are the best of all time, Eddie Reese in swimming, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, all of those guys that have done something that's like beyond that level, or the kind of like the tier of what we're all being compared to for those speeches. But that's what we all hear and gets communicated to athletes as we're raised in our sport. And if you hear from 5 years old all the way through 22, 23, 24, now when when you're graduating, you're probably not entitled. Like, you're probably someone that works really hard. You're probably someone that woke up at 5 a.m. for 10 to 15 years to go to practice. You've probably done 2 workouts in a day. You've probably trained for more than 4 hours in a day. You've had coaches telling you every time you make the slightest little slip up or mistake, they're telling you why you shouldn't be making that mistake and why you should be trying to be the best version of yourself. And so that's bred into you and nurtured into you in every aspect of what you're doing in your life. And you don't really get like an off moment in sports, you know? And so everyone goes through a phase in their life where like things may not be going great, or they may be really frustrated with something that's taking place. And, you know, people are being empathetic. They're providing support. They're showing that they care. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're going through this. You can kind of sit back and watch Netflix, or, you know, kind of give an attitude to a spouse or to a loved one or to a friend, like, oh, they're just going through a really tough time. But if you do that in a practice setting, or you do that around a coach, like it's being addressed right there, right then, in that moment. And not to say that's always going to be a good thing, or it's always going to be the right timing for that person, but that's just what sports are. You know, if you're on a team, you know, it's always about the team, and you are an individual and you're a cog as a bigger, you know, kind of part of that puzzle. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, that coach and that team is responsible to that team for success, for their, you know, athletic directors, for their programs, to whoever is kind of the benefactor of that success. And you may benefit from it, from getting a college scholarship or getting a promotion deal, or nowadays getting NIL. But you're always reporting to someone. Someone else is kind of like the driving factor there. And so you've heard that speech, you've heard that level of motivation, and any way you draw it up, it's harder to be a college athlete than it is to be a normal person. Just period. You just can't compare it from anything else. If you look at average GPAs, for example, the average, you know, GPA is around a 3.0. And I saw the statistic recently. I apologize if it's not completely accurate because I don't have it in front of me, but it was 69% of NCAA athletes get a 3.0 or higher. Regular students, 68% get a 3.0 or higher. Now, a regular student goes and they go to class, they go back, they study, they hang out with friends at night, they go out Thursday night, they go out Saturday night, they might even go Friday night, they might go out on Monday night, because they don't have all of these extra requirements on their day. Now, that same person that's in the exact same class, the exact same program, is going to go to class, they're going to go to practice, they're probably going to go see an athletic trainer, they're going to eat with their team, they're going to have to crank out their homework and get to bed by 10 o'clock to wake up at 5 o'clock the next day and go to practice. Most sports either do 2 practices a day, or they do a 3 to 4 hour workout once a day. And that's just the bare minimum. Like, you think about some of these college football players, for example, that have a 3-hour practice, but they're studying film, not required, but they're studying film all day because they want to try and have one up on their competition. And so much of that is something that's kind of bred into that mentality. And they're doing everything they can to get the peak of their sport. So there's always that kind of breakdown of, you know, people in athletics, where we always talk to it as like kind of a 10% rule, right? There's 10% that are going to kind of just like be a little negative. They're probably going to skate by. They're not going to be the ones that are going to be super driven towards success. There's your 80% in the middle that are going to do a pretty good job. You know, they're kind of going to be influenced by like the lower 10% and the upper 10%, right? And then there's that upper 10%. Again, they're going to do everything possible to try to be the best. And they may or may not have some ability tied to it, but they're probably going to be better than most of the counterparts. But they're doing everything they can to be successful. Now, if you take that bottom 10% and you were to break them down by statistics, you would see that that bottom 10% is still more driven, less entitled, more ambitious than their counterpart that's not an ex-college athlete. And so this mentality gets built into everything that they do all the time. And that just becomes a part of who they are, which one is really cool, because you look at like Fortune 500 CEOs, they want to hire ex-college athletes. I only hire ex-college athletes because I know the type of focus and attentiveness they're going to give to being the best they can be at helping other ex-college athletes. And they're going to be someone that's not going to shy away from doing a little bit extra work. They're not going to shy away from putting, you know, a program first. They're going to understand that mentality. They're going to understand the mentality of like being bigger than themselves, which is an awesome thing. And I wish everyone could have that experience to understand like that level of dedication and what it takes. And I'm going to use a harsh generalization here, but you take like the laziest college athlete and they're probably less entitled than the person that like mommy and daddy paid for, you know, tuition and paid for them to go through school and, you know, paid for their apartment and all this different stuff to make it really easy. That person's just not going to have the same grind and commitment to improving their life. And they're going to face adversity and they're going to like kind of be like, oh my gosh, like this is something that's actually difficult and going to stop me, versus the ex-college athlete who's going to look at it and be like, great, okay, this problem's my face. Like, what do we do to work through it? What do I add in my day? How do I work harder? How do I do more to be able to be successful? Versus the other person that's going to see it as a roadblock and they're going to have no idea how to work through it. But that's because that athlete has been dealing with adversity. They've been dealing with hard training. They've been dealing with being tired. They've been dealing with, struggling to focus because they've had so much on their plate since they were a kid. And they've had that team morale and they've had that team culture built into them for so long that they're just driven. They're just built different. And there's just no other way to cut it other than that. Like, ex-college athletes are built different. And that's an incredible, incredible thing. Now, we frame that up in the aspect of understanding, like, ex-college athletes, like, they're not entitled. They're people that work really hard. They're going to, have been in a team environment their entire life. Now, everyone's experience within that realm is incredibly, incredibly different. So you take that talk, for example, from Nick Saban, who delivers that talk and motivates, millions of people on college game day and 60 to 100 athletes in a locker room for 10, 15 years of his, Alabama career. He can communicate that really well, but there's going to be different levels of perception of that conversation and that speech as you go through different levels. Like, look, I was a 23-year-old head coach. I had no idea what I was doing. I remember trying to give speeches like that and it just not hitting. And anywhere on the scale of that perception for that particular person can be very different. It can be based off their personal experiences. It can be based off their relationship with that coach. It can be based off of previous coaches, family relationships, friends, experiences they've been through, but anyone's going to perceive that in a different way. So say we'll break it down kind of 3 categories. There's a person that hears a speech like that and they're incredibly resistant to it because experiences they may have had with authority figures or leaders in other experiences very early on. They're probably going to leave their college career and they're going to struggle with other people, being in that leadership position because they're going to view everyone in that coaching role, or they're going to want to get as far as they can away from exercise or anything that relates to sport. And they're not going to be able to go to the weight room because it, triggers them to, kind of flash back to that setting, or they're not going to be able to set a 5 a.m. alarm because they're going to think about everything that came from that during their college days. To the person in the middle, where they kind of got it, but they didn't quite 100% get it. I think this is probably the category I was in college. I understood it, but I always struggled with hearing from someone else telling me what to do. Thankfully, I had a great coach that, kind of took the time to give me the patience to relate to me and help me understand a little bit better. But, that middle person, again, they're still going to not really probably enjoy exercise. They're not really going to feel like they have full control of what they want to do with their health or their exercise or career or any of that stuff, just because they never really were able to get fully bought in on that image. And then there's the last category of person where it's they hear that speech from Nick Saban and they go 100% all in. Common phrase, ex-college athletes, all or nothing. They're in, committed, 110%. They're going to give everything that they have, every waking hour they have, to this big goal that is in front of them. And when they are focusing on that goal, these are your Olympians. These are your people that are winning national championships or setting school records in the middle of the season. Or, you're seeing Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, who's, just set the all-time receiving record and touchdown record for freshmen at Ohio State. Those people that are going above and beyond to that next level fall into that category. When you take that all or nothing mentality, you take that attitude of hearing that you have to give every ounce of your being every single day, every single second has to be focused from the time that you're 5 years old to the time that you're 22 years old, you're gonna struggle in going to that transition to being a regular person. Because when you are trying to build a life for yourself, you're trying to build a life for your family, you're trying to just be healthy, all this stuff, it requires a lot of you, but it doesn't necessarily require 110% of you to do that thing. If you think about, that Olympic level or competing for national championships or that level of things, there is a level of sacrifice that comes with that. And that may be in your personal life, your social life, academic life. We always said that you can do 2 of 3 things really well in college. It's either academic, athletic, or social. And you can do 2 or 3 really well, but you cannot do all 3. Now I think I probably have a different perception and thought of that now, because I think you can have a little more balance there and still be really successful. But it takes to be that next level. Sometimes it takes like that maniacal level of commitment to make something happen. And so when we take all of that context, all of that all or nothing mentality, and we apply it to transitioning away from sport, and I do get frustrated with the aspect that like you go through from the age of 5 all the way through 22 of always being in sport, always being committed towards competition, eating, sleeping, thinking, like everything is about trying to be the best that you can possibly be. And then you finish that last competition, and then one day it's just everything's gone. It's like you're not part of a team anymore. You don't have practice to commit to anymore. You don't have any more competitions to strive towards. And then, depending on when your season ends, a month or two later, you graduate. And then all of your friends, all of your teammates scatter all over the world or all over the country, and you don't have that environment anymore. So your friends are taken away. The sport that you identified yourself with since you were 5 years old is gone, and you're thrust into an entirely new environment. That's a lot to take on in all at once, all in one big change. And there's no real off ramp for that. And so you think about it, like your identity's gone. Everything you strive for is gone. And you don't really know where to go. And what you'll see a lot of people do, and it's probably why you see a lot of, ex-college athletes like try to get into triathlons really quickly, or try to get into marathons really quickly, or CrossFits. Like they're craving that level of competition, that level of drive. And then somewhere along the line, they realize like, it's either I got to be like all in committed, or I got to be all out committed. And your health, when you're a regular person, you don't have that sport or that team to strive towards, isn't really that way anymore. It becomes about consistency. It becomes about balance. It comes about making sure that you enjoy it so you can do it forever, that it fits into your lifestyle when you have a family and kids and commitments and job stressors and all the things that going into being a normal person with responsibilities. All or nothing doesn't really have a place in that environment. From a exercise and from a commitment perspective, from trying to be the best you can possibly be. Now, being the best that you can possibly be in that circumstance comes down from us being all or nothing all the time to being a regular, balanced, and consistent person, and making sure that you're enjoying the track, because there is a sacrifice of joy, I think, a lot of the time when it comes to trying to compete at a high level. And that's not something that you have to sacrifice in regular life in most instances. Obviously, if you have to grind for specific goals, like there's going to be periods for that. But ex-college athletes, like, how to grind. We don't really have to worry about that. If we tell you like, hey, the solution is to just do it, like you're going to be like, okay, yeah, so that means I actually have to just do this, versus like finding a way that fits into my life. And I love that, because there are times, we make it easier on our clients for it to fit in their life, but there's also times where it's like, hey, like you also have to just get it done. And they understand that mentality, and they're like, okay, so this is the thing that I just have to get done. I competed in sports when I was young. I competed in sports in high school. I was a college athlete. I was Division II head coach. I was Division I associate head coach. I went through that experience myself. I struggled with going through the transition from being a normal person and thinking about being a normal person while still mentoring other people to be highly competitive. And I didn't want to set the example of being the like overweight coach that, eats Cheetos and drinks, Coke on deck. I wanted to be the one that likes to lead by example. And so I really struggled with that balance. And most people typically do in that setting. And we work with a lot of college coaches where they just have no idea how to have that balance in their life and lead people to have an unbalanced lifestyle. So it's a really cool gap to be able to fill, and for our team to be able to, kind of provide support around. But a big part of that is just like finding kind of what your purpose is beyond competition. And what do you enjoy beyond, training? And, I love the mentality, like we're always training. We're always trying to compete. We're always trying to get better. But the goal changes from just being about trying to compete for a team to trying to like live the best life that you can possibly live. And the best life you possibly live varies a lot by person. So I love identifying those goals and helping people realize that like the goals can be like, I just want to be happy. I want to be healthy. I want to be confident. I want to feel good. I want to be good support for my family. And I want to ultimately be financially successful, or whatever their thing is. Now all of those things become about them specifically, and they spent their entire life always focused towards being a cog in that puzzle, towards trying to be successful as a team. So now it's about them. We're shifting all of that focus to actually being about that individual. And so putting that like support, care in their corner where they actually learn to possess the tools, and understanding that they were dependent on that coach for so much support, or that team for so much support for so long, that everything they know is striving towards competition and being the best they can possibly be in context of exercise, nutrition, their lifestyle habits. So when you remove the competition side of that, but all you've ever learned was how to have competition focused exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle habits, what do? It's completely different. You can't compare the two. So that's where we come in. That's what the gap we get to fill, which is so much fun, because it's like, hey, like, yeah, you can absolutely go out and have pizza on Friday night if you want to and enjoy that, and, you know, have that balance there. We just got to do all these things in the middle. We always see this like curve. And I think I've talked this before, where, you know, there's the person that finishes up their entire athletic career. They go and they think like, I either have to be all in or all out when it comes to my health. And I do think you have to be all in or all out from a commitment perspective, from an invested perspective, towards knowing you want to be the healthiest version of yourself. But it's how do we do that without having that everything being like 110%? Because an 80% effort is going to get you really to where you want to be in your health goals. Like, even if you want to be just as fit as you were in college, and like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not there yet, but that's because I was so unhealthy for so long with, you know, high cortisol levels and stress, and, you know, just balancing all of that was really difficult, but I'm really close. And I work out like 3 to 4 days a week for 30 to 45 minutes. I walk, you know, 8 to 10,000 steps in a day, but that's because I'm out walking my dog. You know, it doesn't take a crazy level of commitment. So that 80% from your health is enough. Then we put time back in your day to go spend time with the ones that you love and care for them, and, you know, your hobbies and all of those other things. And like, it's okay to say sometimes, like, I want to go to the golf course instead of hitting a workout. Like, that's stuff you're allowed to do, which is pretty cool. And so seeing that light bulb go off of realizing like, oh, okay, like this, my all or nothing mentality is not necessarily a bad thing when you think about it from like what all means. All means that it's hitting the 3 to 4 workouts a week. It's making sure that you're aware of your nutrition and that you're setting up in a way that you enjoy and can maintain forever, versus it just being about like that, you know, if you're not 100% focused, preparing for the future. And what's the exact line here? Hang on. If you lose your discipline and your work ethic, what would that get you? Nothing. If you fail to prepare and pay attention to detail, what would that get you? Nothing. Nothing is more important than staying focused and being the best you can be no matter what you choose to do. And I love that. But the definition of what's best changes significantly from when you're an athlete to when you're not. So being able to like set that frame and set it in a way where someone's able to truly be successful long-term, and do it in a way that they're actually going to enjoy the other variables like best that don't get factored into being in that elite setting, are so much fun to be able to put in place. So we don't have to redefine what hard is from the perspective of I have to go get a workout. And there's points where we do have to change what someone's perception of getting a workout is in. Like, it doesn't have to be something they dread or don't look forward to or don't enjoy. But we don't have to just say like, hey, you at least have to like do that. They've done it before. They know what that looks like. All we're doing is changing their perception of it to thinking like it takes this 110% effort to like, yeah, 80% is good. We're fine with that effort. Like, that's going to get us where we want to go. We just have to do it for sustainably and consistently long enough to actually get the result that we want. That change is really cool, but we don't have to like teach them to work. They already know how to work. Just where are they applying it? And some people, yeah, you'll get the occasional person where like they work so hard for so long that they don't want to do that level of work now, but it's just like getting habits back in place and then they're rolling again. Now, the thing that I think is super important that we do that, you know, most people don't typically do is when you have a coach, and you've had a coach since you were 5 to 22 years old. So we're talking, you know, 15 to 17 years. They always told you exactly what to do for exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, all of that stuff. You never actually learned why you do it, both in the competitive setting, but also you never learned how to do it to just be a normal person. So that's what we're teaching you guys. Like, how do we actually do this for me in a way that when obstacles pop up 5, 10, or 15 years from now, this is how you actually handle that to stay on track. And so we spend a lot of time just on like skills, habits, and coach mechanisms that need to be in place to make sure that you can do it on your own. Because ultimately, if you're dependent on a coach again, like you're not going to maintain it forever. You're going to do it for 3 to 6 months and you're going to drop off again. But if we teach you exactly what you need to do and how to overcome obstacles as they pop up in your life, there's a point where you don't need support anymore. And then you never need a coach again. And you can do it for yourself and you can enjoy it and feel good about what your future is going to bring because you know how to overcome those obstacles. And there may be short periods where you become derailed, but you're going to have the skills to get back on track versus you are crushing it for 3 weeks, you get sick, and then you're just done for 2 months. You'll know exactly how to build back from that because that's the stuff we'll actually teach you along the way. I think there's a big kudos that should be provided both to those coaches and that made sure to have those conversations and build that mentality because they are set up better for life than the person that was not an ex-college athlete, and they are built to be successful regardless of what life throws at them. It's just helping them kind of just like fine tune where they need to be, where they need to draw the line, and where they need to understand like this is a little bit too much. Because anytime they've been put in a box for so long, like this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. Anything outside that box is like a no-no. And that's not how your health or exercise or nutrition or lifestyle habits really need to be. It should be able to kind of include a little bit of everything that you enjoy and be able to be on track. So when we transition to that, this is a really fun and enjoyable process. And you're going to feel better, have better energy, be a better, person or support for your family, and ultimately like get way more out of life. I think the biggest thing is we struggle with commitment because we think if we commit to working on our health, we're going to end up right back where we started from just going 100 miles an hour. And that's a fair point because that's all you have ever known. That's how you're going to view everything. You're going to think like, what if I can do it? What if I can't do it? What if it doesn't fit into my schedule? What if I, don't enjoy it? What if I feel like I'm back to that grind? What if I have that PTSD from, jumping in the pool or being in the weight room or stepping on the field at 5 a.m.? Like all those things that can kind of hold you back. And the thing I'd say to a person is like, that's not what it's going to be like. And if that's what it's like, stop it and do something else. So this is one of the main reasons why I probably steer people away from like marathons and triathlons very quickly after college. Let yourself just enjoy existing for a little while. Let yourself enjoy exercise, try different hobbies, try different things that, you are passionate about to land on that one thing. And every single person's different. So don't just go follow a program, but make sure you're also learning how you can actually maintain it and how you can actually build it for you, because there's a million different ways to get healthy. It just has to be the right method for you and what you'll enjoy, so that way you do it for the next 20 years. Thank you if you've been listening from day one, or even if you just listened, this is your first episode. I think this is a great one to pass on to someone that's not an ex-college athlete if you want to share and kind of help them understand what that experience looks like. Stay tuned for future episodes.